It's time for NCW Life News on the NCW Life channel. The latest from around the Wenatchee Valley and North Central Washington with Steve Hare, Cody Johnson, and sports with Eric Granstrom.
Good evening and welcome to NCW Life News. I'm Steve Hare. Stories we're following for you tonight. We'll have an update from Chelan County Commissioners on marijuana deliberations. Douglas County continues its contract with the Okanagan County Jail. Also, Sheriff Brian Burnett has been named president of the Washington State Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, and a major announcement concerning the federal building is expected at Wenatchee City Council meeting this week. We also have an update on the special session from Carrie Candata. Later on, sports with Eric Granstrom and your weather forecast with Dan Kuntz. Our top story, Chelan County Commissioners say they're getting closer to drafting a set of new zoning rules for state-licensed marijuana farms and processing facilities. The Commissioners updated NCW Life News on their deliberations following last week's continued public hearing. Commissioner Keith Gaynor explains how the county intends to establish buffer zones to address the neighboring property owners' complaints concerning odors generated by those pot businesses.
And so what we settled on for the indoor grows would be the rural industrial, the R10, and the commercial ag zones where you would be able to have an indoor grow. Outdoor, you'd have to have a 1,500-foot setback buffer from the property line, and I believe we limited to a tier 2 for an outdoor grow.
Okay. So at this point, you feel fairly confident that you have something in place to put before the public?
Well, I think we will have something. We still have some refining to do. The one thing that we didn't really talk about too much, and staff is going to be coming back yet, it would have to do with the registration and some of the code enforcement aspects that would come out of this. So we have a little bit of refinement to still take place, but I think we're getting much closer.
Commissioner England, you want to check in on this issue?
Well, Steve, we want to make sure there's been some legal pressure on this issue. We want to make sure if those arguments against that do occur, that they're based on our decision and not on a procedure. So this is taking a little longer than we would like to do. We would want to make sure that everything is done exactly right, and so that can't be challenged as part of that. We feel good about what we put together. It was never our intent to completely ban it, but it has caused problems in certain parts of the county, and we want to make sure that we address those.
Now, until those new rules are adopted, the county ban will continue on new state-sanctioned marijuana business applications. Douglas County will continue to use the Okanagan County Jail to house its inmates. Commissioner Steve Jenkins said a new long-term contract was ratified this week.
An agreement with Okanagan County to extend our jail contract to 15 years. It's been up and down in flux, and so we've reached a long-term agreement with them that'll make it a lot easier for all of us to plan for our law and justice and our prisoners and stuff like that. So it was a great partnership, and I think it should be signed within a few weeks, and we'll be on the road.
And a correction to that little video blurb there, Steve Jenkins is a Douglas County Commissioner. And while adult prisoners are sent to Okanagan County, Douglas County's youth offenders are housed at Martin Hall at Medical Lake. That juvenile jail is owned and operated by a consortium of 9 eastern Washington counties, including Douglas. Chelan County Sheriff Brian Burnett was recently installed as president for the Washington State Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, or WASPC. It occurred at the spring conference last month. Burnett succeeds Kennewick Police Chief Ken Hohenberg, as you see pictured here. WASPC currently has 198 police chiefs and 39 sheriffs as active voting members. Sheriff Burnett will serve a 1-year term as the organization's president. Also, big news, a major announcement expected at Thursday's Wenatchee City Council meeting, and that concerns the future of City Hall and a possible agreement that would have the city and local telecommunications sharing space in the federal building. Local-Tel recently purchased the building at auction and had offered a portion of the building to the city for its space needs. Local-Tel President Dimitri Mandelis confirmed that with NCW Life News soon after the company's $3.9 million bid was approved by General Services Administration.
We have offered it to the city at what we paid for it, if they're still interested in it, And then they can have as little or as much as they want of it. You know, if they don't want any, that's one thing, and if they want all of it, that'd be great.
Meanwhile, City Executive Services Director Allison Williams told reporters that they're evaluating the building to see what would make a good fit. The Wenatchee World reports the two sides are targeting a July 31st date to formally agree to terms of a possible sale. Williams told the World that the estimated cost would be about $2.5 million. Thursday's meeting, by the way, is open to the public. It starts at 5:15 at Wenatchee City Hall. Coming up, we'll have an update on the special session from Representative Carrie Condata. I'm Steve Hare. You're watching NCW Life News.
Stay up to date with what's happening in North Central Washington. Go to the NCW Life community calendar at ncwlife.com.
Welcome back to NCW Live News, our Wednesday edition. Well, there's still no budget agreement as the Washington State Legislature prepares to go into a third special session. NCW Life received an update on the budget negotiations and the continuing debate over education funding with 12th District Representative Carrie Condata. I'm Steve Hare for NCW Live News, joined by our 12th District House Representative Carrie Condata. And Carrie's here to give us an update on the legislative session, which is about to go into its third special session after ending the regular session back on April 23rd. And of course, everything is revolving around the budget and the education funding as ordered by the State Supreme Court in its McCleary decision, and other legislative matters as well, because when you go into a special session, everything's back into the agenda, including legislation. We'll talk about a major piece of legislation that right now is a source of contention in the legislature. But first, Carrie, give us an update on the budget, and especially as it relates to the education funding aspect of that.
Well, Steve, as you know, the education group has been meeting daily. They've put in a lot of hours and a lot of time, and I think what they've finally come to is a final point of perhaps impasse. Let's hope not. Let's hope that they can put it together. But it's been a long, arduous procedure. What I can tell you is that the money is no longer the issue. The dollars and cents on both sides of the aisle have been agreed to. That's not the problem. It's how you administer it locally versus state. We're still having this issue with the levy swap. And the two sides have different versions of how they want to do that. And there's reasons for that, because no matter how you do a levy swap, you're going to have winners and losers. And depending how you formulate it, certain parts of the state may have some increases in taxes, particularly Seattle, and other ways might shift in a different direction. So that's really the final sticking point. But the budget is held up because you can't do the budget really till you finalize that piece.
So who is advantaged more by the levy swap? Would it be the rural or the urban school districts?
Well, under the Senate and both the, and to some extent the House Republican plan, the rural areas do really well for the most part. There's a few exceptions, but for the most part you would see a tax shift from eastern Washington and rural areas in north and south of Seattle into King County. And that is because it becomes a more progressive tax. In effect, exactly what our Democrat friends have been asking for is a more progressive tax, but it's in property tax rather than what they would prefer as an income tax. So that's the hang up. And if you take the plan and shift it the other way, then you have inequity issues. Mm-hmm. And remember what the court said, adequacy and equality. And that's the two stumbling blocks we're trying to solve, and it's not an easy puzzle.
Well, certainly the education element of the budget is the linchpin, really, because without it, you don't have a budget.
We could conceivably have one, but we didn't solve the problem that has to be solved, and that's McCleary. And nobody wants to go back to court, and nobody wants to go through this again. And so even though it's taking more time, I am hoping, we'll know in the next few days, that we get this breakthrough, that we get it done and put this to bed, because there are so many other things to deal with.
So, as far as the budget's concerned, where are we overall in that?
The budget is fascinating. I just got off the phone with our budget director, and it's fairly fascinating to this degree. There's only 3% difference between the two budget positions, and there's more resistance to negotiation than ever before. It's like we have come from this far apart to this far apart and can't close that gap. Now, I think if the education program comes together, that gap will come together. Mm-hmm. So the feeling is on the Hill that if education gets solved, if the package comes together, the rest will come into place. Now, there's a lot of optimism down there. This is going to get done by the end of the month. It needs to. The budget ends on June 30th. Mm-hmm. So, but on the other hand, any little glitch along the way could upset the cart.
Well, at this point in time, I think both sides, Republican and Democrat, have to, move off of their original arguments, don't they? And that.
Yeah, and it has happened. I mean, there's no doubt in the education. I followed the education thing every day. David Taylor's our lead negotiator. He's one of my best friends, and he calls me every other day or every day now. And they have moved significantly together, but they've moved to the point where, again, they've hit this one wall. And it always seems like there's just one thing. They get 10 things done, and there's one they can't get over. But I have faith that both can move. It's not that far apart, and I think we will have a solution. It's just a question whether we have it in time. Because frankly, the budget takes 2 weeks to process from beginning to end. So we have to have this education plan done by late next week or we're in trouble.
Is there a possibility you could go into a continuing resolution on the budget?
There's contingency plans being made. We just heard that from our chief of staff that they are looking at all the contingency options, but there is a general feeling that this is going to come together. All the leadership folks have said so. We've done it before. Remember, we were there till July 8th, but we got it done. And so there is precedent, but I think we'll know more by the end of next week. If the education package comes together, I say we're okay. If not, we have a serious problem.
Again, Representative Condata also added that lawmakers in this special session continue to work toward addressing the Supreme Court's Hearst ruling. Very contentious issue. In its 6-3 ruling, the Supreme Court said Whatcom County had failed to protect water resources by allowing new wells to reduce flow in streams for fish and other uses. Court said counties must ensure independently of the state that water is physically and legally available before issuing any new building permits in certain areas. You're watching NCW Life News. Coming up next, we have Eric Granstrom with sports and our feature today on Century Aviation.
Get the fastest internet available in North Central Washington by switching to LocalTel and get speeds up to 1,000 meg. Call 888-8888 today or go online to localtel.net.
And now it's a sports update on the NCW Life channel.
And a happy hump day. Chelan High School graduate and current Brooklyn Net of the NBA, Joe Harris Jr. was the keynote speaker at last night's NCW Sports Awards banquet. He said his future aspirations began as an 11-year-old when he became a huge fan of Luke Ridenour, Blaine High School graduate who starred at the University of Oregon and went on to play in the NBA.
I'd say to myself, hey, this guy was from a small town. He's not that big of a guy. He loves the game. He's a gym rat. His dad's a coach. And above all else, he wanted to be great. I really idolized him for his dedication and persistence. It didn't matter where he was from, how tall he was, or what anyone said. He was going to put in the work and accomplish what he envisioned.
It wasn't long before Harris, the then 11-year-old, was emulating everything Ridenour did, including, much to his initial horror of his mother, using a blue Sharpie and writing goals and quotes all over the walls and ceiling of his bedroom.
My goals were very specific. They went as follows: win championships, have a great attitude, work hard, be a leader, have class, be a great teammate, play Division I basketball, play in the NBA. And then on the very bottom, in all capital letters, it said believe. So as a young kid, I got these awfully grand visions in my mind. And that's the advice that I'd like to give everyone in here today, specifically the athletes. I'm sure that every athlete in here has got goals and aspirations. That's why you are where you are right now. But identify what your vision is. Identify your vision and then get committed to the process in order to accomplish that vision.
Harris went on to start Virginia before being drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers and playing besides LeBron James in the NBA Finals. Over 400 people attended that awards banquet last night for the NCW Sports Awards and Wenatchee Valley College Hall of Fame banquet at the Town Toyota Center. $1,500 scholarships were given out by the host organization, Wenatchee North Rotary, to Eastmont's Kalia Bachma and Chelan's Henry Elsner. Master of Ceremony Steve Tidd announced the high school winners.
The female athlete winner, Jill Townsend. The winner, Tyler Kurt. And the winner of Coach of Female Team, Brent Darnell. I want to announce the winner of coach of a male team. It's Dave Mitchell. And the winner of female team, Eastmont Bowling. And the winner of male team, Tenasket Wrestling.
Congratulations to all the winners. You can see the entire banquet coming up Friday at 7 o'clock right here on the NCW Life channel. Apple Sox fall short in Victoria. They'll wrap up that 3-game series tonight. We'll have the highlights coming up tomorrow. And the Mariners are back at it. They've won 4 in a row, taking the first game from Minnesota last night. With NCW Life Channel Sports, I'm Eric Granstrom. Steve, back to you.
Thanks, Eric, and congratulations to all of our award-winning athletes in North Central Washington. Our feature story now for the day, we focus on a local company based out of Pangbourne Airport. It's getting worldwide attention for its work in restoring antique aircraft. Jay Seebeck has the story.
In East Wenatchee, there's an airport hangar that few in the valley know about. Century Aviation is an airplane manufacturer. They specialize in the exact reproduction of aircrafts and high-quality restorations of historic and classic airplane models. The planes produced by Century Aviation are sought out across the world by independent buyers and museums. Currently, the aircraft they are working on is 103 years old and is the only remaining of the original 300 produced. I spoke with Karen Barrow, where she filled me in on the details.
My partner, Mark Smith, and I run Century Aviation, and among the many other things that Century Aviation does, our chief is to restore antique airplanes for museums and collectors. In this case, it's a 1914 Curtiss Model F flying boat. There are none left in the world except for this one. It was parts of it were found in New Haven, Connecticut, in an outbuilding. When the new owner purchased the property, he thought at first it was a windmill, and then when he got looking at it, he realized it was an airplane. He had it authenticated, and the private collector would like us to restore it all the way through to flying. Just the tail feathers and a lot of the controls were available, and what we had to do was to build the fuselage itself. I brought just one of the pieces of the controls that were the original ones that were found. They appeared to be in a crash at the time, but there's no real background as to what it was. Our project will take about 2.5 to 3 years to finish, and the plane should be flying by next summer. Just so that you know, by the way, the fuselage right now is upside down. We're working on the bottom of the hull to put the mahogany strips on and the varnish.
Stay tuned to the NCW Life magazine for the full Century Aviation story in the coming weeks. I'm Jay Seebeck, NCW Life News.
Fascinating work, and of course, you'll have more on that coming up. We'll be back in just a moment with a recap of today's stories, also your weather forecast for North Central Washington.
Stay up to date with what's happening in North Central Washington. Go to the NCW Life community calendar at ncwlife.com.
Welcome back to our program. We're recapping our top stories for Wednesday. First of all, Chelan County Commissioners say they're getting closer to drafting a new set of zoning rules for state-licensed marijuana farms and processing facilities. Now, the Commissioners updated NCW Live News on their deliberations following last week's public hearing. Commissioner Keith Gaynor explains how the county intends to establish buffer zones to address the neighboring property owners' complaints concerning odors generated by the nearby farms.
And so what we settled on for the indoor grows would be the rural industrial, the R10, and the commercial ag zones where you would be able to have an indoor grow. Outdoor, you'd have to have a 1,500-foot setback buffer from the property line, and I believe we limited to a tier 2 for an outdoor grow.
Okay. So at this point, you feel fairly confident that you have something in place to put before the public?
Well, I think we will have something. We still have some refining to do. The one thing that we didn't really talk about too much, and staff is going to be coming back yet, it would have to do with the registration and some of the code enforcement aspects that would come out of this. So we have a little bit of refinement to still take place, but I think we're getting much closer.
Commissioner England, you want to check in on this issue?
Well, Steve, we want to make sure there's been some legal pressure on this issue. We want to make sure if those arguments against that do occur, that they're based on our decision and not on a procedure. So this is taking a little longer than we would like to do. We would want to make sure that everything is done exactly right, and so that can be challenged as part of that. We feel good about what we put together. It was never our intent to completely ban it, but it has caused problems in certain parts of the county, and we want to make sure that we address those.
Until those new rules are adopted, the county ban on new state-sanctioned marijuana businesses will continue. Also, Douglas County will continue to use the Okanagan County Jail to house its inmates. Commissioner Steve Jenkins said a new long-term contract was ratified this week.
Reached an agreement with Okanagan County to extend our jail contract to 15 years. You know, it's been up and down in flux, and so we've reached a long-term agreement with them that'll make it a lot easier for all of us to plan for our law and justice and our prisoners and stuff like that. So it was a great partnership, and I think it should be signed within a few weeks, and we'll be on the road.
And a correction again, Steve Jenkins is a Douglas County Commissioner. And while adult prisoners are sent to Okanagan County, Douglas County's youth offenders are still being housed at Martin Hall at Medical Lake. The juvenile jail is owned and operated by a consortium of 9 eastern Washington counties, including Douglas. Chelan County Sheriff Brian Burnett was recently installed as president for the Washington State Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, or WASPC. It occurred at the annual spring conference. Burnett succeeds Kennewick Police Chief Ken Hohenberg, pictured there. WASPC currently has 198 police chiefs and 39 sheriffs as active voting members. Sheriff Burnett will serve a 1-year term as president. And a big major announcement is expected at Thursday's Wenatchee City Council meeting concerning the future of City Hall and a possible agreement that would have the city and local telecommunications sharing space in the federal building. Local-Tel recently purchased the building at auction and had offered a portion of the building to the city for its space needs. Local-Tel President Dimitri Mandelis confirmed that with NCW Life News soon after the company's $3.9 million bid was approved by General Services Administration.
We have offered it to the city at what we paid for it, if they're still interested in it, and then they can have as little or as much as they want of it. You know, if they don't want any, that's one thing, and if they want all of it, that'd be great.
Meanwhile, City Executive Services Director Allison Williams told reporters they're evaluating the building to see what would make a good fit. The Wenatchee World reports the two sides are targeting a July 31st date to formally agree to terms of a possible sale. Williams also told the World that the estimated cost would be about $2.5 million. Thursday's meeting, by the way, starts at 5:15 at Wenatchee City Hall. And now it's time for Dan Kuntz. He has your weather forecast for North Central Washington.
It's a weather smorgasbord from Mother Nature after a very warm day today, mid-90s for the afternoon high. Big cool down comes our way starting on Thursday. It actually begins tonight. It's not going to be chilly tonight. In fact, it's going to be mild with mostly cloudy skies and those clouds holding the heat on the valley floor. We'll only get down to 64 degrees, but boy, do things change in a big way come tomorrow. Showers likely on Thursday, basically between 11 in the morning until about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll have clouds Thursday morning, sunshine Thursday afternoon mixed in with the showers, and very, very cool. 71, so a big change in the weather on Thursday. Thursday night, slight chance of rain, partly cloudy, overnight low of about 50, and the cool, unsettled weather continues for the rest of the week and into the weekend. Sunshine Friday, that's our break, high of 71, but as you can see on the screen, Saturday and Sunday, no sunshine, just lots of clouds and a slight chance of rain both days. Highs will be in the upper 60s to near 70, and we'll go back to partly sunny skies on Monday, but a tad windy. And that's your forecast on the NCW Life Channel.
Thanks, Dan. Well, that's our news for a Wednesday. For more on these stories, you can check out that and everything else from North Central Washington on our Facebook page or find it on our website at ncwlife.com. Remember, if you see news happening, we'd sure like you to share it with us. You can email us at news@ncwlife.com or give us a call at 888-NCWL. I'm Steve Hare. Have a great night.
This has been NCW Life News on the NCW Life channel. For more news, log on to ncwlife.com, like us on Facebook, and follow NCW Life channel on Twitter.
Get the fastest internet available in North Central Washington by switching to LocalTel and get speeds up to 1,000 meg. Call 888-8888 today or go online to localtel.net.